and welcome to our gathering of voices and imagery in response to the Beirut blast on August 4th, 2020. Today, we have the opportunity to hear and watch from the 21 contributors of this anthology, the Beirut Call, Harnessing Creativity for Change. Here it is. Here it is. My name is Katia Haj, founder and a publisher at LSR Press in Redlands, California. Also, one of the contributors in this anthology, here to present you with the most endearing book. A big thank you goes to Tess Blevin at the Shovel Collective for hosting the book launch of the Beirut Call. When Dr. Pamela Shrabiye approached me with producing this anthology, my whole being agreed before uttering the word, yes. This is the answer to my own, how can I help? All what we had at that moment was a thought, a flame that will need the best wood for burning and the ultimate conditions to become a bonfire, not only to signal for the world of the disastrous situation the Lebanese citizens are going through, but also to burn the skeletons of dying hopes, of searing disappointments, of empty words, and to transform them into embers that will be passed along the hearts of everyone who will listen and will take the time to see. These embers will be the source of our resistance and resilience in the many faces of adversity. In response to that same question, what can we do to help? Dr. Mitri Rahib from Dar al-Kalima University College of Arts and Culture in Palestine responded by calling onto Dr. Pamela Shrabiye and Ms. Rula Salibi in Lebanon, who preside over the Nabat program, to tap into the creativity of writers and artists for the reason that they are the ones who feed the soul of those hungry for change and starving for human dignity. After our initial meeting, the 21 contributors who responded to the call had only 1 month to create a meaningful and profound offering. They rose to the occasion, and we at LSR Press received their words and photographs. Our gratitude goes to Dr. Mitri Rahib, Mr. Rabi' Rashid, Mrs. Katia Onhaj, Ms. Linda Tamim, Dr. Lulu Malaab, Ms. Joelle Sfair, Dr. Pamela Shrabiye, Ms. Fatin Yaoub, Ms. Ren Abbas, Dr. Omar Sabbagh, Mr. Cliff Makhoul, Ms. Carmen Yahshoushi, Ms. Rula Salibi, Dr. Frank Darwish, Mrs. Doreen Potel Darwish, Dr. Nadia Wardi, Ms. Nada Rafael, Mrs. Rula Azar Douglas, and Dr. Rula Maria Deep. In the matter of 4 months, every member on the team at LSR Press, with the conjunction of Dr. Shrabiye and Ms. Salibi, worked tirelessly. The editing team with Mrs. Samar Haj, Ms. Ali Rigby, and Ms. Jessica Yawo reviewed the manuscript with suggestions and adjustments. The marketing team with Mrs. Nadia Boulos, Mrs. Wendy Hunt, and Mrs. Ali Rigby laid out plans to promote on social media, to create a web presence, and to let the world know of this anthology. The design team with Mrs. Stephanie On Bukaram and Mr. Anis Bukaram at 5D Studios worked with impeccable professionalism and creativity. The administrative team with Dr. Jean-Claude Haj, Mrs. Katia Haj, Mrs. Sim Jimenez, and Ms. Tracy Takahara had many hours of discussion around all what this project entailed to bring it to fruition in its financial and legal aspects. My deepest gratitude to each and everyone. This work was met with the same dedication from Dr. Pamela Shrabiye and Ms. Rula Salibi, who were present at the drop of a text or a phone call, but also worked on the clock to respond to the many inquiries we had. Today, to help me with presenting this anthology to you, Dr. Mitri Raheb, Dr. Pamela Shrabiye, and Ms. Rula Salibi will read and present the contributors of this anthology. 011-961 Alu Beirut, 011-961 My heart skips a beat before hearing the familiar voice. I was at home. I just drove back on that road. We decided not to go to Beirut. I left work late. We had a day off. All my coworkers died. We don't know what happened. We don't know what. We don't know. We don't. We despair. Dr. Mitri Raheb.
Thank you, Katia. And it's great to be with you. My name is Mitri Raheb. I'm the founder and president of Dar al-Kalima University of Arts and Culture here in Bethlehem, Palestine. The explosion at the port of Beirut on August 4th was a catastrophe of unimaginable magnitude. It left hundreds of people dead, thousands injured, and many more thousand homeless. The images transmitted on social media and on TV screens reminded me of the images from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For me, in Bethlehem, Palestine, I felt we had to do something. Staying a spectator was not an option. But what could we do when we are far away? What can we do with limited resources? How could we show our friends in Beirut that we care? Statements of support, litanies, and prayers are not enough. We learned this lesson as Palestinians. Words are not enough. It was clear to us that we needed to walk the talk, to provide something tangible, something concrete that makes sense and makes a difference. At Dar al-Kalima University, the first and only university in Palestine with a focus on art and culture, it was clear that the best intervention we could make must be in the field of arts and culture. This made sense in a context where many of Beirut's art galleries, museums, and ateliers had been damaged and artists had been put out of work. In a context of war, devastation, and unrest, art is not usually seen as a necessity. Often I meet people who think that art in such a context is a pure luxury that we cannot and should not afford. At times of devastation, art is an important tool with a therapeutical edge. Explosions, invasions, and war leave people traumatized, speechless, perplexed, and disturbed. Unfortunately, both the Palestinians and Lebanese know that reality too well. But art is a necessity not only in times of despair. Art is crucial not just for resisting hopelessness, but also in a positive way to express oneself the way one is and for communicating one's story the way one wants. Art is the way we determine who we are, defined by ourselves and not as defined by others. It is for these reasons that we at Dar al-Kalima University decided to respond to the August explosion with an artistic intervention. Through art therapy workshops, artistic performances, and digital platforms and publication, we seek to strengthen the civil society, cultivate talent, and communicate hope so that a fresh spirit will continue to blow within and throughout and across Beirut. We will cast away all clouds of hopelessness and corruption, believing that our people deserve to have life and to have it abundantly. We are honored at Dar al-Kalima University in Bethlehem to offer this very modest sign of friendship to the people of Beirut and Lebanon at large. This would not have been possible without the tireless work of my colleagues, Dr. Pamela Shrabiya and Ms. Rula Salibi. My thanks goes also to Alistair Pless. Thank you very much for all the contributors for your tireless work. And now allow me to introduce to you the colleagues Rabia Rashid, Linda Tamim, Lulu Mala'ib, and Joel Sphere.
My name is Rabia Rashid. I am agricultural engineer and historian, and I'm in Hadat, near Beirut in Lebanon. And I wrote about the history of Beirut. So in brief, just a few days after the blast, I told my American friends in Beirut that, oh my God, we're famous again because of an explosion. That was outrageous. So I will read you my introduction and glance of about what I wrote in the history of culture in Beirut. So in fact, I wanted my motive when Pamela called me was also to fight the preconceived ideas about explosions and war in Beirut. Summarizing the history of the cultural role of Beirut is a restless endeavor, since Beirut is an ancient city that was continuously inhabited and played the same role across the different empires for millennia. Indeed, its ever unchanged geographical location as the gate to the Levant earned Beirut the honor to host prestigious institutions and transformed it into a hub for regional culture. This is why we chose some of the most memorable facts of Beirut's cultural heritage. In the same way, a lover picks the flowers he carefully selects to create a personalized bouquet for his loved one. So I talked first about evidence of ancient music in Beirut, then the Roman school, the famous Roman school of law in Beirut. Then there was the end of an era because of an earthquake, so and the tsunami in the 6th century. Then again, a new cultural hub thanks to Imam al-Awza'i in the Islamic era. Then again, in the Crusade period, Beirut was Beirut culture. I took the example of the Beirut castle of the old lord of Beirut, who was a crusader. Then again, Fakhruddin, the new lord, built again his castle in Beirut with lot of was rich with mosaics and everything. Then I talked about the Beirut rebirth in the 19th century, the fact that it is the vitrine of French culture in the Ottoman Empire, and the deep-rootedness of the modern education sector in Beirut and the establishment of the prominent universities, AUB and St. Joseph University. Then I talked about the creation of the National Library and the booming of the feminine clubs in Beirut, yes, in the 19th and the 20th century, including during the French Mandate. I briefly talked about the sudden cultural freeze because of World War I and the Great Famine. And then right after World War I, there was the Beirut International Exhibition, a forgotten international exhibition in Beirut, held in Beirut, and the role of Henri Gouraud Then there was the golden days of archaeology, and I ended by the foundation of the National Museum of Beirut. So these were the top selected topics that I wanted the readers to know about Beirut, not to remember it because of a blast. And I'm very lucky to be here with you to share all of this. I'm eager to hear the other contributors. And the next one, I think, is Linda Tamim.
Okay, so as mentioned, my name is Linda Tamim, and I'm very honored and privileged to be here tonight. I must say that I just got back from an 8-kilometer run, and I made it to a point to be here and not miss this this event that's very special to me, as it's my first time ever contributing a chapter to a book. So that's something quite big for me. And for that, I must thank my dear friend, Dr. Pamela Shabiye. It's thanks to her that I had the chance to put in writing all those feelings and all those emotions that have been bottled inside my heart for quite a while. But before I get into this, just a quick briefing about myself. I'm a journalist based here in Beirut, and I'm also a radio broadcaster. I work for Virgin Radio Stars here in Beirut. I have a morning show. And for that, I'm eternally grateful as well, because that is the one of the things that keeps me sane in this country. I'm sorry to sound a bit more grim than you were. Sorry, I forgot your name. I'm very bad with names. The one that just spoke right before me. You seem to be a lot more positive than I am. I try to be, but it's not every day. And having been on the ground during the explosion and after, it was quite a pretty grim sight. And even before, when the economic crisis started here in Lebanon, I've been covering a lot of things on the ground, and seeing those things firsthand really toughens you up a little bit, and dims that light that you usually have when you think of Lebanon. But anyway, I'm going to try to stay as positive as I possibly can. So this whole experience to me was really a journey. It was a reflection as well, reflecting on everything that Beirut and Lebanon means to me in general. I was born and raised in Mali in West Africa, and then I chose to come to Lebanon back in 2003 for my studies. Nothing I regret here at all. And it's been quite an interesting journey for me, but the last couple of years really have shaped me. And as I mentioned, I've been reporting nonstop ever since the blast occurred. I've been on the ground. I've seen things I never thought I would ever see in my life. And I spoke a lot, well, I wrote, I should say, a lot about it in that chapter, which I called A Story to Tell, because it is a story. It's my side of the story. It's my version. And I just wanted to show people what I have experienced. And it's also a healing process for me. I felt quite healed after writing this down. So again, I must thank Dr. Pamela Shabi for this opportunity, and Rula Salibi, Elisar Press, Dar el Kalima University College of Arts and Culture, and Nabad as well, of course, for that. Thank you so much for listening, and for all being here tonight, and for giving me this opportunity to express my emotions and my feelings inside. I believe the next speaker is Dr. Lulu Malab.
Yes, hello everyone. How are you? Thank you, Ms. Tamimi, for introducing me. Yes, I want to add on what Ms. Linda was just saying. In fact, thank you, Elisar Press and Dar el Kalima University, and everybody who, and especially my dear friend Pamela, who made this, gave us this opportunity. As Linda was saying, actually, when you put your thoughts out there, it is quite therapeutic for us. So my contribution in the book is a series of 4 short stories entitled Fortunate Timings. Now, when we talk about Beirut on the 4th of August and the title comes in as fortunate timings, people would wonder what's so fortunate about it. Well, the title is a little bit in a form of in a sarcastic manner, as in we the Lebanese people now who are still living, we consider ourselves fortunate only because we survived a near-death experience. So it's as if the word fortunate has been reduced to its very basic meanings and the most basic connotations. So I will be sharing one of the stories now, a short story which is very dear to my heart. The stories are based on true events and based on true things that happened, but they are fictional. That the event is happened, but the characters are from my own mind. It is the story of Amal. Friday, the 7th of August, in a small, impoverished and extremely tidy house in the suburbs of Beirut, sat Marie on a couch, surrounded by men, women, and even kids of the entire neighborhood. Some of the people were her relatives, others were friends, and some others were just neighbors and acquaintances who came to show sympathy and support for the yet unknown destiny of Amal, Marie's youngest son. In the Lebanese society, showing support in times of need is a cultural habit that is held so highly. More than 30 people were crammed into that tiny house, not giving any regard to social distancing, viruses, or pandemics. Evidently, when death comes in form of a sudden, massive explosion that changes the color of the skies, the smell of the air, and the topography of the earth, it takes one's attention off the small doses of an only probable death that a tiny virus might bring. So Marie was sitting in her house, dressed colorfully, as was everybody there. Marie had refused to dress in black and refused that anyone coming into the house be dressed in the color of death. Amal is alive. He is alive, she said. His phone rang twice the day before yesterday, she kept saying, while holding her phone and constantly looking at the screen. Marie's fingers were all scratched, her palms scraped and cut, her arms had bruises, and the small part of her knees that showed from the navy blue skirt only when she sat down had dark blue spots covering them. Those scars would go in a week or two, but I'm afraid what brought them would scar Marie's entire existence forever. Marie had been searching for Amal herself for 2 days under the rubbles, or at least under the rubbles that they allowed her to access. The port area was closed only for professional troops and police forces, but she thought to herself, maybe Amal had left the port to get some coffee somewhere nearby. 6 p.m. was his coffee time, and she knew it. So there she was, running like a mad person, shouting out his name from one hill of debris to another, from one ghastly structure to another. Amal, Amal, she screamed. Tony, her eldest son, was with her. He was there watching her vent out her pain and scream off her agony from the top of her lungs, shouting, Amal, Amal. 2 days and 2 nights shouting for Amal made her tumble down and collapse on the 3rd day. Amal's late father chose his name. Amal was conceived in year 2000, the year when Marie and her husband had decided to repatriate back to Lebanon. When the boy was born, his father decided to name him Amal, which means hope in Arabic. This is the hope of a new life in Lebanon, he said back then. On the 7th of August, Marie opened her eyes to find herself at home in her bed. Her voice was lost, her tears dried, her arms very heavy. She knew they had given her some sedatives, but despite everything, she managed to get out of bed, dress colorfully, and walk to the bedroom. All she could do now was sit there, hold the phone, and wait for Tony's call. He was still at the port searching for Amal. A while later, in the afternoon of that same day, Marie's phone rang. Hello, Mama. Marie did not reply. Thank God, dear Mama. We found his body. At least we have a body to pray for and bury, Mama. Tony continued. Let's be grateful for that at least. Mama, other people had only remains or did not even find the body. At this point, Marie dropped the phone and screamed, but her voice did not come out. Marie wore black ever since. So now I leave the floor for Miss Joelle Sfer, who will take after me.
Thank you. Thank you for your reading. It was powerful. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Joelle Sfer. I am 43 years old, and I am the co-founder of Tourleb, which is a socially responsible tour operator. Thank you for everyone for inviting me. It's absolutely amazing being part of this amazing adventure. I can't wait to see it bloom. I can't wait to see where it's going to lead. It is, however, very sad that it took such a dramatic event for us to unite and to write about, each contribution. It is very sad that we've had to use the ink of that terrible explosion and the terrible consequences. And well, everyone knows it. It's beyond the explosion. It is the economic crisis. It's everything that came before it, after it, and etc. Thank you for Dr. Pamela Ashrabi also for asking me repeatedly to write something. I don't really consider myself an artist. I do write, however, to express my thoughts. Very often also it's about my feelings, but sometimes it's long thoughts, processes, and then they end up in writing. I've been lucky in the sense that I have already made previous contributions, whether online or in a couple of books. It's always an amazing adventure to be part of this. I'm gonna read, just the end of the text. The text that I wrote was about the uncertainty. We all know that life is uncertain, but after the events that unfolded in the past 2 years, well, year and a half, I felt that the meaning of uncertainty took a whole new level. And these thoughts stayed with me for a while. And after, in French, they say cogitation, so a lot of thinking and wallowing, this text came up, and I'm just going to read the end of it. It's on my phone though. So voila. So as I said, it's about uncertainty. And living in Lebanon, we took uncertainty to a whole new level. Uncertainty became the impossibility to know, or rather the unbelievable amount of resource and imagination we develop every minute of every day to solve stupid problems that don't exist anywhere else in the world. Well, at least not in most countries. How to manage to pay the rent, the bills, the employees, for those who have any, and have food in the fridge. Sorry for the background noise. How to send money abroad, how to find medicine for a diabetic partner, how to keep a small business afloat, how to pay the bills when your income is worth nothing, how to pay for your children's tuition when you lost your job. And how dare you complain when everyone around you is facing this and you're okay? When you managed to somehow be okay, when you weren't in Beirut on August 4, when you lived in the confinement in a mountain house with a huge garden, when you managed to eat and drink and pay your rent and your bills. How dare you cry because Beirut was blown up? Because someone you fell in friendship with lost half of her face. Because your cousin and friends and work partners lost their homes. Because friends lost their savings. Because everyone lost their happiness and joy. How dare you feel pain and sorrow and rage and unimaginable contempt to those who continue doing this to us when other friends left the country promising never to come back, just like I did all those years ago? How dare you hope they will come back simply because I came back? How dare you be jealous of those who found a job abroad while you are still here, even if by choice? Voila. So thank you, everyone. I think now there's a slideshow.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Shrabiye, scholar, visual artist, activist, Nabat program manager, live from Lebanon. I would like first to thank Dar al-Kalima University, and especially its president, Dr. Mitri Rahib, for his trust and continuous support. My friend and co-editor, Ms. Rula Salibi, also my friend, Ms. Katia Onhaj, and the amazing team of Elisar Press, the Shuffle Collective for hosting this event, and of course, all of the Beirut Call contributors, our friends and colleagues whose pieces inspire our souls to re-emerge out of suffering, and remind us that our humanity is formed in and by the complexities of overlapping territories and intertwined histories. Each and every one of you remind us of the benefits flowing from arts and cultures, as these help shape reflective individuals, facilitate greater understanding, increase empathy and respect, help people find their inner voices and express their aspirations, and help the healing of individuals and communities that were and still are traumatized by wars, blasts, and multiple crises. I am more than honored to be part of this wonderful gathering of academics, poets, artists, activists engaged in and for a wounded city, Beirut, and more, for an agonizing country. Individuals who are themselves harnessers of creativity for change, mastering the art and act of crossing borders along textual, visual, political, and cultural margins, who humbly encourage us to challenge guarded territories, to deconstruct concepts of essentialized identities, to learn lessons from the past, live in the present beyond mere survival, seek justice, engage in dialogue, and have hope for tomorrow. So thank you again for accepting to be part of this journey. I'm more than thrilled and happy to have most of you tonight and today, depending on where you are. So without further delay, I leave the floor to Mrs. Faten Yaoub, Ms. Ren Abbas, Dr. Omar Sabah, Mr. Cliff Makhul, and Ms. Carmen Yahshoushi. So let's start with Mrs. Faten Yaoub.
Thank you, Dr. Pamela. Hi, everyone. I'm Faten Yaoub. I currently work as a freelance TV producer, and I'm joining you from Dubai. First, I'd like to thank my husband, Dr. Omar Sabah, for encouraging me to participate in the Beirut Call book. And of course, I'd like to thank Elisar Press, Dar al-Kalima University, and Nabat for all the good work they're doing. I really hope that the Beirut Call book will contribute to the positive change that Lebanon needs desperately. I left Beirut back in 2012 and haven't lived there since. But every time I go to Beirut, I notice the regression that is eating away at the state and the people alike. And this saddens my heart. I will now read my poem and then comment on it briefly. Beirut. Wells of weeping, that's what evil times have turned you into. You used to quench our thirst for beauty, our love for life. Look at you now. You look tired. You cannot even dust off the ashes, retiring into wells of blood and the scent of rot. You wear your smoke, kuhl for your teary eyes. You hide your heart from the monsters of the dark and cover your face with a sad smile. We parade for your awakening. We beat our drums. We light the torch and clear the way. Our Beirut, come back for us. Wake up for us. Gather your ashes and rise above your wounds. Your phoenix is immortal, and that's what they don't know. but we have faith in you. In your alleys and corners, your windows and sea, your streets and late lights, cleanse your doors with the wells of purity and break down the walls of fear. Chain back the thugs of evil and bury deep the arms of hell. You were born a lady, and a lady you shall always be. I don't wish to call out here the names of the evil powers, quote unquote, that in my opinion, and to say the least, have been trying to alter the identity of our dearest Lebanon. But I do hope that our aesthetic contributions in all their different forms and media would be able to help transform the blackness of the current situation of Beirut and Lebanon for that matter. In my poem, I'm calling on both Beirut, B-A-Y-R-U-T, the proud history, and Beirut, B-E-I-R-U-T, the cosmopolitan melange, to resurrect and rebel against slumber, sadness, darkness, and blood. I believe it's only in the hands, the hearts, and the heads of the Lebanese people to reclaim Sitt al-Dunya Beirut, and therefore their right to a decent living. Thank you again. Thanks, everyone. Now I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Mrs. Ran Abbas. Thank you so much.
They say that the world without art is a dark place. But what if this place is already dark? Yes, my Lebanon was always a dark place, full of corruption, war, violence, injustice. That's why my art is considered violent and dark, because it's engaging with key issues that affect me and us today. And that is the art that matters these days. My art is my views and my freedom to express myself. My art is a revolution, a power. I can't predict how this power would affect people or change people's minds or influence them. But I use this power to change my world, one perception at a time. The most engaging part, or exciting part, is that my illustrations and my drawings are seen as a threat by the politicians and their ignorant followers. Even if this art is on a small screen, as small as their brain. As an artist, my world will be darker than it is already if I see things as they really are and accept this reality. If I do, I will not be an artist. Me, Ran Abbas, as Lebanese activist, entrepreneur, CEO, educator, and mother, I make my own world. I don't simply receive it. Thank you. And now we'll go to
Say your name.
Omar Sabah.
Dr. Omar Sabah,
yes,
I'm
Omar
here.
Sabah. Hi, Omar.
Hi.
Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Just first of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Pamela Shrabieh for alerting me to the call for contributions to the Beirut Call. She's a dear friend and a dear colleague. I would also like to thank Darul Kalima University and Nabat for all the good work they're doing in general and here, and of course the LSR press team. My name is Omar Sabah. I'm Associate Professor of English at the American University in Dubai. And I'm gonna just do a quick talk, which I wrote up, ambulating around my contribution rather than reading from it, because it's a prose piece and it might be too long to really read parts of it. So I'm gonna try and be honest and intriguing here. And so here goes. So my contribution to the Beirut Call, Extreme Unction, Beirut at the end of its tether, really doesn't say much beyond the obvious. Making use of the image of last rites, both at the beginning of the piece and at the end, does not intend anything religious whatsoever. It's just that, a handy image that works, I hope, rhetorically. And my piece in general, insofar as it doesn't state anything too strange or startling or original, is primarily, I like to think, a piece of suitable rhetoric meant to stir the blood and pierce the mind. The parts of my contribution that were individual were small shards of memoir interspersed with a pat diagnosis of the contemporary scene in Beirut, if a diagnosis, and this is important for me, at a distance. Whether in relaying my personal experience, past or near present, in and of Beirut, or indeed discussing the contemporary climate there, I try to acknowledge this distance because there really is nothing like living through a place that all agree, I think, is indeed at the end of its tether. So, as a roundabout way of discussing my contribution, I wanted to just highlight the opening sentence, where I note the coincidence of the date, August 4th, of both the Beirut explosion of 2020 and the opening, as it happens, of the First World War. The one reason it's a date I remember with more emphasis than usual is that it is a recurring date in one of the early 20th century's greatest British writer's novel, Ford Madox Ford's The Good Soldier, a masterpiece about the end of innocence and the end of an era. So I wanted here just to make a quick roundabout connection. I love doing this. It just stirs the symbolic juices, primarily as an inadvertent way of indicating the submerged mental process behind my piece. You see, whether Dowell, the unreliable narrator of Ford's novel, telling us this, quote unquote, saddest story he's ever heard, is indeed an innocent, baffled by the narrative he tells, in which he himself, of course, is a main character, or whether he's a bit more in the know than he lets on, is the whole point of this novel, right? And The Good Soldier, unlike what many might suspect, not having read it, is not about war or violence or courage and so on directly. It's a tale about betrayal and deceit. And I suppose what's interesting here, given the coincidence of dates, serendipitously, is that the story of contemporary Beirut, for all the violence at times, for the impact of the blast, is also one of insidious betrayal and deceit, a kind of spiritual failure, in the ways the recent Lebanese revolutionary upsurge has announced with such vehement force. So maybe we too are looking back now and trying to piece together the Beirut story, another kind of quote unquote saddest story you've ever heard. And whether we're reading a novel or going through hellish experiences on the ground, ultimately, between those who do have the leisure of the first, and I admit it, privileged position, and those who are like the wretched of the earth, there must be a deep and pressing humane connection. Because if not, then nothing is readable, text or context at all. And now, having done that performance, I'd like to introduce, please, the next contributor to the Beirut Call, Mr. Cliff Makhoul.
First of all, let me say good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on the area, definitely. So my name is Cliff, and I'm a photographer. I work at Notre Dame University as well as a freelance photographer, and I work with Beirut Jam Sessions through Anthony Saman as a photographer as well. I don't know if you've seen a couple of my photographs through the presentation that passed a couple of minutes back. They're mostly of the uprising of what was happening on the streets through October 17 onwards. And as you will see later on in the book, photographs from Beirut in general, whether in good times or in bad times as well. As for my contribution in terms of the photograph that I chose to present for the book, it's a photograph of a young man, and that when I found him through the streets in Beirut on actually a month after the uprising started, he had this serene look on him, like this warrior that's just waiting and resting for a bit to go on with his devotion for his city that he loves. And it was somehow mesmerizing. Now, the text is definitely a bit different in the book than what I'm delivering now, but still it's within the same sense, same logic, if you want. And it was really interesting, the way he looked, the way he was resting. It's basically a bit kind of like, I don't know if you've seen those paintings of Orientalism, and it was very interesting. It was basically in the same, if you want, outcome when you look at this young man, this young warrior, if you want to call him, and that basically, yeah, that's it. I don't know. Basically, that's it. I didn't want to be long. I don't normally like talking much in public, so thank you. I can see people clapping. I would have loved to introduce Ms. Carmen Yahshoushi, but sadly she couldn't be with us. She couldn't be part of today's event, but I think there's a presentation happening at the moment. So after me, I think Dr. Shrabi. And before I finish, I would like to thank Dr. Shrabi and Ms. Rula Salibi, as well as everybody part of the book, and definitely Beirut Jam Sessions, because through them, I'm part of what is happening today. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Just 1 minute. Hi. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. My name is Rula Salibi. I'm a jewelry designer. I'm an art director, and I'm Nabad project coordinator. And first of all, I would like to start with a big thank you to my dear friend, Dr. Pamela Shrabiye, and to Dr. Mitri Rahib for giving me this amazing opportunity to be part of this beautiful project. And to all the contributors, thank you for all your work and effort. And to Elisar Press also for the amazing hard work you did. Now I would like to share with you a personal experience following the Beirut blast. August 4, 1 hour before the blast, I was heading home after spending the day working, sketching my new collection at a coffee shop in Mar Mikhail, Beirut. I got lucky. However, a very good friend of mine that I was supposed to join wasn't that lucky. Instead, her life has changed. She got injured from the explosion. Every day I ask myself, why me? Why did I get so lucky? Maybe because I'm expected to be supportive of my friends and of others. I can't really explain why, but I feel I needed to be involved. I went and I saw a history, a heritage, completely erased in just a couple of seconds. People lost their homes, their loved ones, their life, their memories. And at that moment, I felt that now is the time for us to be together as one community to rebuild what was lost. I was active in base camps and NGOs for almost a month until I got a phone call from my friend Pamela. Rula, are you busy? I have a job proposition for you. I didn't even think about it. I told her, of course I'm interested. And that's how I joined Nabat's team. That's how my journey began. That was my new path. I got lucky to be part of this amazing initiative, feeling useful, productive, creative, alive. It's been almost 7 months since that phone call, and I can say that we did wonders. It wasn't easy, but it was magical. I got lucky to have met amazing people, shared their stories, helped artists and enterprises that lost their work, ambition, faith in this country, faith in the future, helped them rise again and fight for their work, fight for their Beirut, our Beirut. I got lucky, and the Beirut Call is my witness. All the contributors, texts, poems, testimonials, photographies were like my own words, words that I couldn't express, words that said, we love you, Beirut, our Beirut, and we will help you rise and feel your nabad, your pulse again. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry I got a bit emotional. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Nada Rafael, Ms. Rula Azar Douglas, Dr. Rula Maria Deeb. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's a bit hard to talk after you all. I'd like the emotions to go through, but I would like to say first that I'm proud to say I'm Lebanese. And this is something we always forget to say. I'm Lebanese and proud to be Lebanese. I left Lebanon in 1997 and came back in 2013. And my life changed since then. My relationship with Beirut, through everything I do in life, I'm a photographer, I'm a documentarist. I also write from time to time. And when I have time, I'm a tourist guide. So I like to say that to tell the story of Lebanon, and not only the story, but the stories of people, and meeting people changed my life. One thing that is very important for me is when Dr. Pamela Shabi asked me to actually send pictures, I first of all sent a text. I don't know if she was expecting it, but I just sent my emotions because I felt since August 4th that Beirut left me. And I have to say that on this day, on the 4th of August, I was with 2 tourists from France. And we left from Beirut, and I was taking them, and I was actually in the citadel of the independence of Lebanon. And I was actually talking about the independence of Lebanon. And when we were coming back to Hanjar, taking the road, actually the car literally like went off the road. And so I was like, okay, maybe something, anything, whatever. And I was shocked to see what was happening. So of course, I left the tourist with my colleague Joël, who continued for 4 days the tourism, because we couldn't let the tourists and just, came back to Beirut. And I think that even today, when I close my eyes, what I hear is actually the walking on the glass. The small, when everything is so silent, but everything you hear is just the glass under you. I think this sound will never leave me. I thought I went back to the war because I was born literally on the green line. And so during all the war, everything was happening in our building or on our building. So I felt that everything was coming back to me. And I was like, wow, this is why I left Lebanon. But oh my God, thank God I'm here, because my friends are here, because everyone is here. And a bit like my colleague Linda Tamim, I'm also a journalist, so I had to report to Radio Canada. So I had to actually talk about everything I was seeing, and it was really hard to talk about Beirut. I was really, you have this sentence in your mind that always comes back. When I was in Canada, I used to tell people, I'm Lebanese, and people would tell me, oh, you come from Beirut, war. This is when, you hear about East Beirut and West Beirut. When there was the blast in New York in 2001, people would actually talk on the TV and say, the streets of New York are like the streets of Beirut. And all this came back to me. And this feeling was so strong, was so emotional. I didn't know if I had to continue a job or I had to be touched and emotional. And actually for 3 months, I was there with journalists, Canadian, Italian, French, guiding them through the streets of Beirut, meeting people, hearing their stories. And all my emotions were inside of me, and I didn't allow myself to actually feel. And it's only in February when I left Lebanon for 2 weeks in Canada, and we were forced to actually live 2 weeks in confinement, that I couldn't stop crying for 2 weeks. I think that everything went out in February. Of course, I took pictures. Of course, I wrote words, but I think that this rage that we have, that nothing happened after this 4th of August, that nothing is happening in the country to change everything we're living, is so frustrating that it pushes you to actually create, to talk more about Lebanon, to just make people feel with us what everyone is living and how everyone is living through, of course, these events, but other events too. And I try and I do my best to show also the good sides of Lebanon, because we still, and we have to say that Lebanon is a very rich country. We actually walk every day on 6,000 years of history. And it's not only about the war, but everything that, goes out of it and everything. And when I hear you talking, all of you, I'm just want to be back on the street and just yell and say, people, please, let's do something. So thank you all for all your emotions, all your artistic, stuff, your words, and this is what keeps us going, actually. Thank you. So I would like to present Ms. Rula Azar Douglas after me.
Yes, hello, my name is Rula Douglas. I'm a journalist and fiction writer based in Beirut. Let me start by expressing my deep appreciation to each and every person behind this beautiful project that allowed me for the first time since August 4 to see that despite all, art can paint a vibrant rainbow in the gray sky of Beirut. I will read two short excerpts from my text, the title of which is a quote by Gibran Khalil Gibran, "Darkness is down, not yet born." To this day, I search for words to describe what happened on that doomed early evening. The thundering cloud ripping through Beirut, the massive shockwave smashing the future of hundreds of women, men, and children to smithereens, and shrouding the lives of thousands of others in black. Entire neighborhoods turning into ruins in the blink of an eye, crumbling buildings, collapsing walls, shattering windows, and cries of despair filling the streets. During the months that followed August 4th, it is my pen that saved me. I clung to it like a drowning person clings to a lifeline. Some rolled up their sleeves and took to the streets. Others turned in on themselves. I started writing. And it was writing that allowed me to keep my head above water during those first weeks following the tragedy. Alexandra, Elias, Isaac, Ali, Ahmad, Sahar, Diana, Samir, Joe, Samer, Sherbel, Cristel, Hassan, Ralph. I called out their names on social media and everywhere I went, all the victims, each one of them one by one. I tried to tell bits and pieces of their stories, fragments of the dreams they carried. I shared their smiles and bright eyes, and I imagined what their lives would have been if other leaders were in charge of the country. Because this disaster was preventable. The suffering, bloodshed, destruction were preventable. But that's a different story. A story of institutionalized crime, conflict of interest, corruption, treason, impunity. A story of the low value of human life in Lebanon. A story of 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate left with no security measures in the warehouse, just across from people's homes. Armed with photos and fragments of life, I spent days and long nights fighting oblivion by shedding light on the victims. I was also honoring Beirut. All together, we shall emerge from the abyss. The most resilient pushing the others, helping them shake themselves up, sharing with them a breath of fresh air, reminding them of 1,000 reasons to hold their head up, to build and rebuild, to reclaim their city, to bring the future back to life. And this is where art will help us make it through. Art in the broadest sense of the term. Certainly the art that charms, but above all, the art that mends and heals, the art that nourishes the heart and soul, the art that uplifts, the art that prompts action. And most importantly, the art that can lead to the understanding that resilience is not synonymous with resignation. Thank you for listening. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rula Maria Deeb.
Thank you very much, Rula. First of all, I would like to give a special thanks to Dr. Pamela Shrabiye, Dr. Mitri Rahib, Dar al-Kalima University, Nabad Art, Edisar Press, and Shuffle Creative. Thank you for having me here. It's been an honor being with all these wonderful scholars and creatives, and my God, so many rulas as well. So I'm really happy to be here tonight. A little bit about me. I'm a professor of English at the American University in Dubai. I'm founding editor of Literary and Arts Journal Indelible and organizer of Site Creative, which is a monthly event for creatives with a background in psychology. I'm a published creative writer, a scholar, and a food blogger as well. In this wonderful collection, I have contributed with 2 of my poems, both of them about Lebanon. They're not specifically about the event, but about everything else that makes Lebanon what it is, and the event as being part of it, the event as being not the first, but hopefully the last of its kind. In Meditations on an Olive, which is my first poem, this is a reflection on the olive tree, which is a symbol of peace, hope, and resurrection. It is also a contemplation on how our suffering as a people, whether we live in Lebanon or not, is actually a source of our resilience. We die only to be born again. The title of the second poem is Entropy, and I've used the scientific term to refer to what is meant by entropy is that it's the increasing amount of chaos and disorder, and it increases in a black hole when matter falls into it. And this is what we have been seeing so far in Lebanon. So this black hole, the chaos, the amount of disorder that is increasing by day. This is also a meditation on a Lebanon, but a Lebanon of past and present. The poem invokes images of the historic past and the mythological past as well. The present, of course, and the future, the hopeful future of my native land in the Levant. These images contain references to native scientists such as Pythagoras, Porphyry Malchus, Zeno, images of the Phoenician sailors, allusions to mythical figures such as Adonis, Ashtarut, Europa, and there are also references to female saints from local hagiography, Saint Thecla, Saint Marina, and Saint Barbara, whose stories, I believe, had formed the earliest forms of resistance and feminism in the region as well. There are references to foods, of course, olives, figs, herbs, edible flowers. The poem is meant to show the richness and fertility of our land and culture. And of course, the main purpose is to show a recurrent theme of resurrection. I will read one of the 2 poems because I'll read the shorter one because entropy is a little bit long. So this is called Meditations on an Olive. We have all been pressed coldly, just like you, only to embalm wounds from the oil from within and anoint rites of passage. We have survived deluges, after which our existence became a fine sign of life, carried by the unclipped beak of the dove of hope. Where there's an olive, there's a Gethsemane, an impending scene of crucifixion and resurrection, the clutches of betrayal and clinches of friendship. Where there's an olive, there's the cycle of life, tear-dropping from the unbowing, leaf-laden boughs that remain tall but humble. So thank you once again. And it's a great honor being with all of you. I can't wait to get hold of the book and have a look at all the marvelous works that are in it. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in to hear and watch the many writers and artists of the Beirut Call harnessing creativity for change. We have come to an end, and I only have to say it is all too fitting that it falls on the celebration of Mother's Day in other parts of the world. A day here in the United States that was created as a response to war in a determined and steadfast call for peace among all people. The Beirut Call is available in ebook and print in your local and online bookstores. We have left some links on the chat, but also go to LSR Press website and you will find more information. Your purchase will bestow on you an ember of a promise in the unfathomable directions of life, and the support of the Nabat program in Lebanon to give a space and a livelihood for emerging artists, writers, and healing circles. Now we will open for questions. If you have any questions for the contributors, please put them in the chat. I feel there's a question from Anuj saying, what is your vision for rebuilding of Beirut now? And it's open to all the contributors. So please put your questions in the chat. The question is, what is your vision for rebuilding of Beirut now? Who would like to answer?
Well, I don't know if I can answer this, but I know what we should not do, but I don't know what we should do. Like I think, like, personally, I know what should not happen, but I do not know what should happen because I'm not a politician. I'm not an economist. This it's a project that needs its people. So of course, what should stop is corruption. What should stop is the confessional system. What should happen is a more secular constitutional system that respects the citizen, that treats people equally. The patronage system should be abolished. Those from the top of my head. I mean, this, in my opinion, what should not happen, but I really don't know how we can rebuild.
Thank you, Lulu. Anybody else with a question? Or Nada, Rafai, or Joel?
Yeah, I would I would actually want to add something very important. When we talk about rebuilding Beirut, do you mean physically or do you mean emotionally? Because emotionally, it's going to take a lot of time for people to process what happened, especially that we don't have an answer. What really happened? What happened and why it happened at this moment? Is it something that was predestined to happen? It is something that was political. Is it really an accident? And if it is an accident, why nobody acted upon it? If we're talking about Beirut physically, I'd like to say surprised to see how Beirut grew back on their feet. I mean, at least the facades of Beirut. I like to call the facade of Beirut because when I saw Beirut and I saw Gemmayzeh and on Karantina and even Bush Hamoud and Basta and all these regions, how they were destroyed, I was amazed to see last week how the bars and the restaurant are trying to open again, and you feel there's a life there, but this life is just so fragile and so emotional. Like, people are here but they're not really here. It's like a dream. Did it happen or not? So physically you can see changes happening, but what do we really need? We need people to come here. We need people to actually rebuild, give hope back to the people, and the economical crisis to, people to stop being afraid of the future, the uncertainty, being afraid of not having enough money to eat at the end of the month. So we need the international people to come back to Lebanon. This is how we can rebuild the soul of Beirut. We can actually give back hope to people and tell them we are here and we are going to stay here to actually have a voice for everyone who doesn't have a voice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to add something.
Okay, go ahead, Rabia.
Just in a few words, I wish that the heritage, the cultural heritage, the architectural heritage is preserved. If it is not preserved, the soul of the city will be lost, in my opinion, and many other people's opinions. You don't know, since 1990 up to now, you don't know how much of the heritage was lost. It's a tremendous percentage, the majority, in fact. I wish the heritage is preserved. This is my reply.
Yes, thank you very much, Rabia. There's another question. It's probably to the editors. How did you go about finding the contributors to the anthology?
I'll try to answer, in fact, both questions, although I think that the first question is very complex, as what we are going through, and in Lebanon, we have been going through in the last few decades, even more 100 years or so, is a multiform crisis and ongoing vicious cycle of physical and psychological wars that seem to be never ending. But in this dark tunnel, there are always, in my opinion, lights that shine. And this is how also we thought of contributors to the Beirut Call. And what I meant by lights that shine in the tunnel. So we're not looking for a light at the end of the tunnel, because it will probably never, we will probably never see it, maybe during our lifetime, but at least in our darkest hours, we are surrounded with people who shine, beautiful souls who are both resistant and resilient, who are, like I said before, harnessers of creativity for change. So this is what I personally had in mind, and I believe that Rula too, and Dr. Raheb, and well, later on the whole Elisa Press team who joined us. So when looking for contributors, so not only so we were trying to find these special voices and courageous voices. Despite everything, were able to emerge and re-emerge through their writings, through their visual artworks, testified, you know, against all odds. So basically, that was it. And thank you again for everybody, for all of the contributors, our friends, our colleagues, who are part of this wonderful journey, this challenging journey, trying to you know, trying to voice, in fact, somehow with colors, with letters, with forms, symbols, the unspeakable, the unspoken, and try to give us. I'm not going to say yes. Try to give us and give others hope when there is no room for hope anymore. Most of us are from the war generation, and we've gone through so many difficult times before. But what we're going through nowadays is much more difficult, much more challenging. It's not a déjà vu. So we need all of you know, these forces, joining forces together in order to get through these difficult and most challenging times. So thank you again. I don't know if Rula wants to add anything to it.
Thank you, Pamela. Rula, do you have anything to add?
No, it's all been said by Dr. Shrabi. I'm 100%. I agree 100%, and it's hard for us. We try, we struggle, we look at the tunnel, we try to like find the light. We don't have a choice. We live here. Me personally, I don't want to leave. I still want to look for the light. Is it gonna appear? I don't know. So it's, we wait for it, but we stay positive and we fight for it and we do amazing work and we try to raise our voice and we live. That's all.
Thank you,
Excuse me,
Rula.
I just have one last thing to say, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, as I mentioned, I came back from a very long run, so I'm very exhausted, but there's still something that I really am aching to say right here. It's as much as we try to stay hopeful and as much as we try to keep our spirits up, I'm one of those people who doesn't want to leave Lebanon. And I mean, I love the job that I have. I love my circle of friends. I love how life is here, you know, if I live in my own bubble. But to what extent can one live in their own bubble in these conditions? How much can one close their eyes to all the misery that's going on in the country, knowing that you have 80% of the population who lives under the poverty line, a lot of people who can't even afford the most basic of necessities. I'm one of the lucky ones here. I'm staying with my family. Luckily, I don't have any rent to pay, but that's not the case for a lot of people out there. I have, you know, people who make food at home. I don't have to most times go and buy groceries. I'm privileged. I say it. I'm very privileged. I'm very lucky. But that's not the case for so many out there. And if I were to be on my own, I would not be able to survive in this country. So, and given that the current, you know, context and the current situation at the moment, the international community is asking those very same ones who are responsible for that blast that destroyed Beirut in a second, the way that it hasn't been destroyed during the Civil War. How can we have hope in a country when the international community is asking those very same people who are responsible for that blast that destroyed Lebanon to rebuild it and to rebuild Lebanon and move forward with that? That is the question that I'm asking myself today. And can I live with that? Can anyone live with that? Do we blame everyone who's leaving? How? You know, it's, and with all of this brain drain, all of those wonderful and talented people who are emigrating en masse because they're losing hope and they're not finding any glimpse of you know, hope or opportunity, any incentive to remain in this country. How can Lebanon move forward in the positive direction? That is, of course, we're not talking about the downward spiral that we've been, you know, sliding in for the past couple of years. And in fact, even before that, but we were just not aware of it. That is the main question that I'm asking myself today.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, it is a question very, we all ask it, indeed. Thank you for formulating it out loud. There is one last question. And it is from Khulud al-Dimashqi. And she's asking also all the contributors, what is your vision on building trust? She asks, has anyone considered the psychological repercussions on the Lebanese? And I think we all have. But I mean, so she means by that, building the walls is easy, but building humans is more challenging after the trauma. And I would venture and say the traumas. So if anybody would like to respond to that question, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I just say one thing quickly?
Yes, go ahead, Omar.
The earlier contributor or lady who spoke about, I think, closure, and this is a psychological thing, that, you know, most people, especially the Lebanese, and I don't consider myself in that group because I grew up very privileged, but most people have gone through what they've gone through, can really deal with anything if it's in their face. But as long as it stays amorphous, as long as it stays like a gray area where no one knows what happened, why it happened, and so on, then that's where the psychological kind of infinite regress happens, because then you can never put your finger on something, however horrible it is, however unspeakable it is, because I think the Lebanese of all people can deal with anything if they can put their finger on it. But the psychological thing is that everything is murky. And I think that's something we experience in our own lives, not not in terms of living in Lebanon or not, but I mean in relationships in life, trust is based on clarity, or at least some sort of clarity, or at least 1%, but not everything staying kind of gray and murky. So that's what I would say. Very generic point, but I think it's true for everything really in life, and specifically in Lebanon, because deceit and betrayal and these things which happen between people has happened, I think anyway, en masse in the country. So yeah.
Thank you, Omar. Rabia, go ahead.
Well, in few words, first, it's the spirit of good. This is how we can fight the trauma or the spirit of pessimism of bad. Second, to think outside of the box, always to try to find answers by thinking outside of the box, and that's what you did. That's what Pamela and Rula and Katya did, and they thought of something unusual. And third, the bicycle syndrome. I mean by that, you know, when you ride a bicycle, when a child, let's say, rides a bicycle and he sees a hole in the way, he hit it, and he falls. The answer that his dad or mom will teach him is to look beside the hole, not to look at the hole, because if you constantly looks at the hole in the road, he will direct his bicycle to it. So we should look at the solution or at the way of escaping. Well,
thank you, Rabia. You sure reminded me of my own riding of bicycles. But yes, you do make a point there. Thank you. I think this is it for us today. Thank you again, all of you, for being here, for making the time, for writing, for taking photographs, for being witnesses of our country and what's going on in it, for being the voice to speak up every time. I have no answers either to any of the questions, but I do ask those same questions as well. And being far from the country for the past 22 years, they have not changed. And we'll keep asking them and answering in the many ways we can until we get somewhere, or we don't. But we keep living and we keep thriving and we keep helping each other. Again, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful coming together for the book launch. And the ebook is out in several spaces. Wow. The book is coming out soon as well. And hopefully it will be in your hands soon enough where you can read all the contributions and all the writings and see all the beautiful, heartwarming and heart-wrenching photographs. Thank you again.
Thank you everyone so much. That was incredibly beautiful and inspiring. Wanted to thank everyone who was part of this for your courageous and beautiful work. I'm putting a link to the Shuffle Collective, the Beirut Call project on Shuffle Collective. So you can actually follow that project for updates as well. And I just wanted to take one quick moment here to invite each and every one of you to join Shuffle Collective. We're first off, a community, a global community of people working on bold, meaningful and impactful projects like this one. So we come together to support each other in our work as a global community to make the world a better place. We also provide you with a platform to showcase those projects and have people follow them and gain support. So please do apply and join us. And thank you all so much for this beautiful reading.
And please don't forget to for all the visitors to help us support artists, small creative enterprises, and arts NGOs in Lebanon through the Beirut Call, through Nabad. Thank you again to all the contributors, Shuffle Collective, Elisar Press, of course, and Dar el Kalima University. I love you. Keep safe, stay safe, and see you soon. Bye.